Hey everyone, John here from ViewSonic, and today I'd like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the heart of our new setup wizard, modes. Today, let's take a look at HDMI with device control. This is targeted towards Teams Room or Zoom Room appliances where you want to control the power state of the display through the HDMI connection. You don't want the display to manage itself, you want the external compute to manage the display. So let's go ahead and select HDMI with device control mode here. And we have an OK button to just accept those, but let's arrow up and now take a quick look through what these settings are actually underneath the hood. So HDMI with device control, that is ViewSonic's implementation of CEC, or Consumer Electronics Control. That's one of the primary protocols used by especially Android-based Teams Room or Zoom Room hardware devices to control a display. So naturally, we're going to want that enabled, and it is. You'll also see that RS-232 and LAN control are enabled by default in this mode. That's for additional flexibility in how you might implement this into your space. If you choose to add something like a QSYS or Crestron environment later on, the display is already natively configured to accept those control inputs beyond just HDMI control. Wake on LAN is off. We're not planning to use IP services in this mode. We're going to scroll down a little bit here into power and boot. Energy Star is off. We want this display optimized for performance, not necessarily for energy savings. Standby mode here is sleep, not hibernate, and that's key. Sleep mode is a fast boot, and that's what we want when that compute device, whether that's through a room sensor or through an infrared sensor on the touch control, when that sensor triggers the waking of your Teams Room or Zoom Room device, we want the display to respond quickly as well. And in sleep mode, it will. Normally, we are connecting our source to HDMI 1, and in typically a Teams Room or Zoom Room environment, we have one source, and it's that appliance. So here, we're telling the display we want it to boot up to that particular input. That combined with our power on state, which is what does the display do after a power loss? In this case, we want it forced on. So if there is some sort of power loss in your facility, those two settings are going to work together to make sure that the display is back where you want it. When power is restored, it's going to be forced to turn on, and it's going to reset itself back to HDMI 1. We've also disabled an auto power off reminder because powering off is a normal part of this process, right? Every time that communication system, Zoom, Teams, every time it sleeps, the display is going to sleep. We don't want a warning because that's normal and expected behavior. And then we also have some signal settings here at the bottom. We don't want it automatically switching input ports. We want it to be configured to work with the appliance you've connected to it. No signal standby is set to 10 seconds, and that's about the time that it takes to properly put the device to sleep. So it's going to, when it receives that standby command, do a 10-second internal countdown and go nicely to sleep. We do have Wake on Active Source as a backup, where when that HDMI input activates, some Zoom or Teams appliances will not trigger a CEC command. So when that HDMI source activates, the display will recognize it and wake again as expected. USB autoplay is a signage device setting. We're not using it in this mode. HDMI version, we want full functionality. So we're using the enhanced version. And we're also not looking for auto signal detection because that, combined with input ports, allows for hot switching. Someone plugs into HDMI 3, it detects that signal and switches. So again, in a conference room environment where a Teams Room or a Zoom Room might be deployed, we don't want that to be the case. So that's a quick look under the hood at what this HDMI with device control mode is doing and how it's pre-configured to give you a successful deployment.